I'm very excited about the screening today. I've always wanted to include restoration in the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and this year Warner Archives stepped up to the plate and wanted to collaborate, and then we have this incredible section of the festival, Warner Archives. And you know, we're not only showcasing, of course, today A Clockwork Orange, but Ben-Hur and Dangerous Liaisons, and I hope you guys come out for that. Last night, I don't know how many of you came to the opening night party, but the theme, I don't know if you saw the pieces, where it was dedicated to A Clockwork Orange, and there was a big sign that we made, A Clockwork Orange, and it was stolen during the party last night. And I know that probably one of the culprits is in this room. Nobody's leaving until somebody fesses up where that sign is. But I was pointed out by Ned Price, who I'm going to bring down in a second, that Kubrick would have celebrated the fact that there was vandalism, you know, that somebody actually stole the Clockwork Orange sign. Anyway, please welcome the Vice President of Restoration, Ned Price.
I wanted to take this moment to say thank you to Warner Brothers Motion Picture Imaging, which is an inside house within our studio that collaborates with me and allows me to do these very intricate digital restorations and cooperates with me in terms of building software to alleviate some problems we've got with the film. And so every restoration we do, we end up with more and more toolkits, and it's just a great collaboration. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the show.
All right, so it is my great pleasure to welcome the Vice President of Restoration at Warner Brothers, Mr. Ned Price. And it's a privilege to have Ned here because, you know, as we convert more and more films digital, there's a very complicated restoration process that I'm sure Ned will be able to bring us some really interesting insights into. And this is the 40th anniversary of Clockwork Orange, so it's also amazing to have it on the anniversary at the festival. So we'll start with just the question of what was it like restoring the film? What were some of the challenges of going digital with this?
Well, I got an amazing, I was told that I needed to restore 7 Kubrick titles back to back in a period of 3 years. And it was like a dream job because I was basically immersed and steeped in Kubrick for that whole period of time, both in audio and picture. And so I was lucky enough to have Liam Vitale work on this project, and he was Kubrick's assistant, right-hand person for about 25 years. So he came over and brought the camera negatives from London. Kubrick is, as you probably are aware, is a very different filmmaker than most. And part of it is that he owned his films. They were 50% owned by Kubrick and 50% owned by the studio. So he not only had a say in how they were distributed and who did what with them and how they looked, he owned the negatives. So the first part was going to get them. So when you restore a film, the first thing you do is gather everything. And you take a long time doing research, and then you get the original camera negative and you lay it out, and what you're basically doing is you create a roadmap of what that camera negative looks like, what state it's in, what type of wear, what type of damage it's got, and then you just notate the whole thing. And what you're then are going to do is you're going to go through the entire film frame by frame and strip away repairs that have happened through the years, dupe inserts that cover damages. If there were like a big tear through the camera negative, oftentimes they would cut that out and make a dupe and put that in its place. And so what we would go do and we would find the damaged sections of the camera negative and prepare to scan them back in and repair them digitally. And so we could actually recover the original resolution and put it back into our restoration. Have to say that restoration in the digital world is pretty much a new area, and I think that a lot of laboratories think they can just launch right into it, which is incorrect, because really, the scanners and the people within the laboratories are used to dealing with brand new camera negative that just came out of the camera. It's aligned, it's all prepped to scan that new stock, which has its specific characteristics. And here we have a 40-year-old camera negative, which has every cut within the film has shrunken differentially. So you go to one close-up, and at the end of that, you might have a splice, and the splice may be larger than the cut it was coming up to, so you get this big bump. And then you go to the next frame, and it might be skewed a little bit differently than that. So you can't just put these 40-year-old negatives up on a scanner and expect that they're going to go through without any problem. And I have to say that usually we spend a couple of months ahead of scanning just prepping the negative. So there's a lot of work that happens just before the scanning process even happens. And so if you go to the laboratory, we have the photochemical laboratories and specialists there. You just can't use any laboratory. And they're working at a bench, and we've done our roadmap of everything that's wrong with the negative, and we've measured how each cut of the camera negative has shrunken differently or maybe skewed a little bit differently. We've removed all of the tape repairs and stuck them to the wall, so by the time it's done, it looks like somebody blew something up behind you. And we cleaned it. You have to clean it, actually a lot of physical work. Hand by hand, we have this terrific guy. It's a chewed toothpick, which is his favorite tool. And he just goes through and lifts off the pieces as he goes through. So then we get to our in-house facility, which is the digital center, and that's motion picture imaging. And Chuck Dages is here, and Chuck runs the facility. I appreciate, Chuck, everything you've been doing with us. Chuck is very patient with us because, as you can imagine, this stuff takes an awful lot of time, and time is money in that world. And he also allows us to develop new tools and processes and algorithms that help us with problems with specific negatives. Things that happen over time to a camera negative is that it's a physical process of printing, and it's going through sprockets, and it's literally getting pulled through machines. It is on a chemical base, and go through the developing process and the curing process, and every time it goes to the printer, it also is exposed to chemicals. So you can imagine what happens to the negative over the course of 40 years, especially a really popular one like this film. So there may be optical sections that were printed in a stock at the time called, it's called a CRI, it's color reversal internegative, and it was very poor stock at the time. So if you get to crossfade transition to another shot, you're going to have this pulsation, and you're going to have color fluctuation and all of these strange anomalies. And so, is that you? That's me.
Okay, great. So, I think that we've started very early at our facility and our studio at working at the tools that we need to in order to complete digital restoration work. And I think that's great because I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve. We can deal with a lot of nitrate film, anything produced before 1952, Streetcar Named Desire, Wizard of Oz, all of those films are a nitrate-based film. And there's just a handful of facilities that are able to even handle it. And so, since our library is so vast, actually, I feel really fortunate that we can start processing these now. In the case that film is no longer manufactured, and we have to then just go straight to digital, we'll be able to accommodate everything.
So as we convert to digital more and more, I mean, what is the future of archiving films going to be looking like? I mean, when you're looking at like a digital versus a DCP, which is what we exhibited the film on today, what are some of the challenges going to be of restoring like a DCP hard drive? I guess in 20 years.
Yeah. In terms of digital archives, there is no true single one logic that's going to work across the board. It's a real problem, a huge problem for the industry, because Well, we're now working with different industries and people like the Academy and trying to decipher at this point in time, since what they're shooting is not a permanent medium, what part of the production do you actually start archiving at? Do you start to archive their roles as they come through? Do you archive everything that's shot? Do you just archive the selects? Do you just say, you know what, the finished copyright film is the film and we're just gonna have to forget about everything else? Those are some real difficult decisions to make. And hard drives maybe last 5 years. So we're already to the point where we've got material, original production material that could be failing. We were asked to revisit Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, and so we could re-release them. And I went back to the original 2K files, and they were on SDST format. And we went on eBay, we called around, we had to find people who had those machines. And we did find a guy out in the desert, and he sold them to us. And if that was not a Warner-produced film, that was a New Line film at the time, we do keep archival decks and archival formats ourselves in storage. So MPI hammered away at those files, and amazingly, we were able to retrieve all of the information. And I really didn't think we were going to be able to at all. And I've had newer films that have failed, in the sense of the drives are dead. You know, they're a physical medium. If they don't spin, they die. And they can just, you know, get concealments and problems just by sitting there. So yeah, huge problem. No one has one answer. It's a very expensive process to keep everything spinning and alive at this point in time. Also, everybody in the, we call them the DI world, films made in the last 10 years or so, you had a lot of different laboratories that had their own proprietary software. And so trying to retrieve a file that was made at a company called eFilm, for instance, at this point in time, is going to be very difficult because that software no longer survives. I've also had files that we tried to restore that are dependent upon 3 different softwares and platforms operating in unison at one time. So you can imagine what we're facing. So as a studio, at this point in time, we still feel very strongly that film is the archival medium. It's a very inexpensive format if you compare it to what a digital file could be, and the number of digital files that you'd have to work with. And you put it on a shelf and you go back in 200 years and it's still there. And so it's relatively inexpensive long-term storage as well. And the other aspect is that we're not seeing, as an audience, everything that's on the film yet. We're seeing a small percentage of the resolution that is on those 40-year-old negatives. And so you can't consider this to be our end stop. I'm going to have to go back. We, as a facility, tend to go back at least every 10 years and revisit our work that we've done and start from scratch. We go back to the camera original, and we get much improved results because we get new tool sets every time we visit it. You know, if you have to sell Singin' in the Rain for the 50th time and you want people to buy the 50th version, it better be substantially better than the last version. So that's what we charge our facility to do, to be on the cutting edge and actually develop software that we can use for our work.
All right, thank you very, very much for coming. We're thrilled to have Warner Archives at the film festival this year. Also, please keep in mind that Ben-Hur and Dangerous Liaisons are also both going to be playing this weekend, and we'll have Ned here to also discuss those films too. So check the schedules, and we hope to see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.